Inspired by Love is a podcast hosted by Rachel Love, dedicated to promoting inspiration, hope, and giving a healthy dose of God's love for every aspect of life. Rachel is a seasoned inspirational enthusiast who uses witty commentary and biblical truths for real-life solutions, offers business strategies, health and wealth tips, and self-love care. Unlock the power tools to dig deeper, discover your untapped potential, and live your best extraordinary life. Here's your host, Rachel Love.
And hello and welcome to Inspired by Love. I'm Rachel Love, and I'm excited to have a friend who happens to be an author, a speaker, and an educator for companies. Her name is Miss Stacey Gordon. Stacey, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you. Great to be here.
I'm so glad you could make it. So let's jump into this. This is Women's History Month, and that's one of the reasons why I have hosted just a plethora of friends to come on and talk about business, workplace, and just a variety of things that happen in the workplace. So you happen to be a diversity specialist. So why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do?
Sure. So my background actually started off in recruiting. I think that's partially how I know you, Rachel. I used to do a lot of recruiting, and in my time as a recruiter, I realized that the way that companies were hiring really just did not work, especially for people of color. And I hated it and didn't want to continue contributing to that cycle and wanted to find a way to impact how companies hire. And so I started working really specifically and strategically as a DEI strategist and counseling, coaching, helping executive leaders to really look at the way that their companies are not only hiring, but also engaging their current employees. Because everyone's quick to say, oh, we need to hire, we need to get more diverse,
Exactly.
A bigger diverse pipeline, but sometimes you're overlooking the people who are right in front of you. So part of that is looking at how we engage and retain the population of employees that we currently have. So that is the work that I do. I really enjoy it. I love working with people at all different levels, and happy to be able to be here to talk about especially what's going on.
Yes.
The workplace is such a renewed and heightened look at diversity in the workplace, which is a good thing. We need that.
Yeah. Well, my first question that has probably been plaguing a lot of people that have been dealing with this pandemic and really just either trying to stay employed or trying to be reemployed and reintroduced to the workplace. So let's just kind of break down this whole thing of, pandemic, workplace, our remote working culture. So can you explain to us what diversity is, what that looks like in the workplace today?
Yeah, diversity is really looking at who the people are, right? We are looking at who are we bringing into the workforce? Are they different? Do we have a good mix? And the idea of increasing diversity is because there's all the statistics that show that companies that are more diverse make more money, they're more productive, et cetera, et cetera. But there's also the part of the idea of diversity that makes you realize that it's the right thing to do. We have been working, and when you look at the way that companies are set up, right? If you look at the top down, it's always like Caucasian, Caucasian male, Caucasian male, Caucasian male. Maybe you get some Caucasian females, right?
And one HR person.
Yeah. And so the idea is just that we, individuals stop putting people in boxes.
Right.
let's look at what people can actually do. Let's look at their skill sets, their experience, and what they bring to the table.
Yes.
And let's not categorize what we think and what we assume somebody can do just based upon their gender or the color of their skin.
Of their skin. Absolutely. I love it. So since we've been dealing with this pandemic, and I know so many people have been displaced, where the small businesses have actually closed, how restaurants were impacted, and just how workers are just like, you can only do so much Uber because you need to still protect yourself. I mean, there's ways that we can work and make money. Even myself, I've been a serial entrepreneur for at least 25 years, having that sideline of event planning. I found that people, all events, weddings were canceled. So it made me take a step back to say, well, goodness, I got to work from home. Now, what do we do in re-entering the workplace? So what do you say, Stacey? What have you seen? What have you heard in the marketplace? And what do you think our society is going to accept? Because most workers, especially women, have been secluded to their home. They're working from home. So therefore they've set up their schedules with their children, school, and different things. You had the ability to work from home. While you were doing the work, you still had the ability to kind of shield yourself from, exposure.
Yeah, I think, as people start to get back into the workplace, there's going to be, people are going to look at it very differently, right? Like everyone's different and everyone's comfort levels are going to be different. And how companies decide to ease back into the workplace is also going to be different. There are some companies who are ready and willing to reopen, and there are lots of, especially corporate companies, that aren't willing to take that risk just yet. So at least not until the government fully reopens everything, right? Because
Yes.
then really what they're looking at, it's not so much that they care about whether or not you get sick. What they care about is their liability to risk.
Oh, that's a good one.
They're trying to figure out, if you come into my workplace and you
Yes.
get sick, can I be sued? And will it
Yes.
be my fault?
Ooh,
And so it will be their fault
yes.
because they have required you to come back to the workplace prior to the government saying that you can come back to the workplace, which is why most of them do not want to bring you back until everything is fully open, because they don't want to have that liability and that risk.
Now, that really brings up a really good point. As we are talking about women, diversity, inclusion, there's a lot of things that people can accurately apply for. And that is either you're going to start your own business and apply for the PPE. So have you known anyone to do that? And what are the advantages for them?
I mean, there's tons of people who are doing that, right? Like that is not my area of expertise, right? So I, at this point, in terms of PPE, I'm not even sure if there's still even opportunities for that, right? I think that time has passed. What business owners want to be doing is making sure that they are paying back any of their loans that they have gotten. And because I know that process is starting, right? Everyone's starting to get those letters, those emails saying, hey, it's time to pay up. So I know certain loans that are starting to be, for some of them, the EIDL portion of it are potentially able to be forgiven. But yeah, you need to get with your bookkeeper, your CPA, right? And figure out what that's going to look like.
Yes.
But I think women have always started businesses at a higher rate because of the idea that we know that in the workplace, we're tired of being passed over and overlooked and underestimated and underpaid and overworked. And
Ooh,
so
come
we
on.
are,
Say it again for the people in the back.
yeah. So they're dropping out of the workplace and starting their own jobs, right? So I'd say, pandemic or not, that number has always been skyrocketing, especially for Black women as well. That number skyrocketed. And so, I've seen some statistics. I think it's from Lean In. They put
Mhm.
out a report, a 2020 report that talks about the state of Black women in corporate America, that says, that that Black women are struggling in the workplace. And it's like, well, let's put that in the, no duh files, right?
Exactly.
Like, we knew that already. We didn't need to have a whole report to tell us this. What we do want a report to tell us is, what are you going to do about it?
Exactly.
Right? That's what we
Exactly.
really want to know, is stop telling us what the problems are and start telling us what the solutions are. And so that is really part of why I do the work that I do, because what that report said was that 50% of Black women feel that their race or ethnicity makes it harder for them to get a raise, promotion, or a chance to get ahead. And it's like, yeah. And that's only compared to only 3% of white women feel that way, right? So 49% versus 3%. But again, not a huge aha moment.
Right.
Because we know what some of those barriers are, the systemic barriers in the workplace,
Mhm.
biases in the workplace. And it's the reason that I wrote my book, right? So I'll do my plug here, right?
Let's talk
Here's
about
the
the
book,
book.
right?
Yes, yes.
Pull out the book, Unbiased, Addressing Unconscious Bias at Work. And I wrote this book because the goal is to address the barriers in the workplace, to reduce the bias that is preventing people from getting hired.
Yes.
And we're tired of it, right? So normally, what do? We jump out of the workforce and we go start a business.
Exactly. Let me raise
owner,
my hand on that one.
but it's like, even as a business owner, you still have the same barriers, right?
Mhm.
But I will say, as a business owner, I have made way more money as a business owner than I ever had being employed, right, by a company. So the other part of that is understanding, though, that you still face the same issues. I mean, just last night, I had to show my husband this article. I will not out this company, but I got an email a couple of weeks ago asking if I would be willing to do a workshop for their employees around unconscious bias. Well, of course I would, because that's what I do, right?
Right.
Oh, but do you have a budget? Well, no, but you could get exposure to our employees, and we would promote your book and hope that people would buy it.
Oh no.
Okay, but wait. So then last night, what do I see? I see on LinkedIn a huge post talking about this company and how they have set aside $350,000 to women in the workforce. Oh, so you're donating to women in the workforce, but you somehow want me, a businesswoman in the workforce, to work for free?
No, thank you. Next.
But this just shows, right, that these companies still have not gotten the memo, right?
Yes.
They think, oh, I'll just write a check, right, to this organization. I'll just, submit some money. I'll send a woman to an education class, and that's my check the box activity, and I've done my job, and we've done everything that we need to do to promote women. And it's like, no, have you looked at the women in your workplace, the women who apparently need this diversity training that you say you need for your employees that you don't want to pay for?
Come on now, tell the truth and shame the devil. But see, you know what, Stacey, that's why, and one of the reasons we have this platform and other platforms like it, because it is about exposure. We need to get the truth out there for women that are working, single mothers that are working, even educated women. Now, you and I both have MBAs, am I correct? And even after acquiring the MBA, earning the MBA, and there was a specific job that I was actually trying to go for, but was overlooked because they said, oh, yeah, you have the degree now, but you don't have experience in this field. And I found that to be very interesting, because let's talk about education for a minute. Now, I've encouraged my children to go to school because I know the barriers that I faced when working. However, I've told my son, because he's so creative, and my daughter, both of them are very creative. I'm like, it's okay to have that piece of paper that you earn, but also go after your dreams. Whatever makes you happy, pursue your purpose. And you'll see that the doors will start to be open for you. And now he is really finding that that is happening for him. And my daughter, she went, did her 2 years and said, Mom, I think I'm going to become a stylist. I'm like, good. And now I've seen her work and she's gotten out there. It's like, okay, this is exactly what I was talking about. It's okay to encourage your children to go ahead and take that additional step, but don't get into bondage or saddled in with a lot of debt. So I don't know what your stance is on that.
Yeah, that's a hard one for me because personally, honestly, I the world that we live in,
yes,
requires an education.
Yes.
Right. And so I think you have to have an education, right?
Mm-hmm.
You have to have a degree, but honestly, I hate it. I hate even saying that, which is why it makes me pause because I have to like throw up a little bit before I can really say it. But I don't think that's the way it should be. And even in saying that, yeah, you need to have a degree, for many of us who have a degree, it's still not enough, right? The bar is constantly being raised. So it's like, oh, you need a college degree, bar. Oh, wait, you need experience, bar. You need a master's degree, bar. You need experience with that master's degree, bar, right? It just keeps going.
It keeps elevating. They keep moving the carrot.
Right. And so the goalpost keeps getting moved and the obstacles keep getting put in the way. And so I think that this is not the case, right? And I'm gonna say it. So white men out there, if you're listening, it's not the case for you, right? That is not the case. What might be the case is, you might have obstacles because you might have come from a lower socioeconomic background, right? So you might have some of those. I'm not saying there are no obstacles for white men, right? That's not what I'm saying at all. But what I am saying is that for people of color, the obstacles there's so many we can't name
astronomical.
Them, right? And it's like trying to get through an asteroid field or something. It's just frustrating. And so this is my long-winded way of saying that this is why the system has to change.
Yes.
Because do you need a degree? Yes. Should you need a degree? No. And if you should need a degree, it should be that everyone who needs a degree should need a degree, not that only these people over here need a degree to get this job, but you over here don't need a degree. It's fine, we're going to let you pass, right? So that's my problem with the degree, is that it's not equitable, right? We don't have equity.
That's good. I like that. I mean, I like that analogy because first, we're both coming from the same vein. We both have been in the workplace. We both have experience in educating ourselves, and we've hit the glass ceiling. So it's either you're going to stay under that glass ceiling or you're going to break it.
Yeah.
So I'm really curious about the state of Black America and women, especially in the workplace. And what do we want to accomplish with Kamala Harris, our vice president, who is in office? What is it that we are seeking that she's going to open doors for not only us or people that look like us, but all women in general?
I think that's a tough question too, because it's like we can go back to Barack Obama, right? We had a Black president and people were expecting like, oh, we have a Black president, so he's going to part the waters, right? And we're all going to walk across to the promised land, right?
Yeah,
Barack Obama, it was not Moses and neither is Kamala, right?
Yes.
So I think that we have to refrain from putting these high expectations on people who are just people, who are doing their job and who are happy they made it to their place, right? But that they are not going to be able to open the door and let every single other person in as well, right? Because they don't have that type of power. I think that for a lot of it, we have to look to ourselves and go, okay, they did it, which is the great part of having them as role models, right?
Yes.
And knowing that that can happen, but also understanding, because there is this idea that, well, because that happened, then it means it's not happening anymore for anyone else, right? There's no more racism, right? Racism's gone, discrimination is gone, all is good. We all know that's BS.
Mm-hmm.
So
we know that in 2021.
Understanding that Barack Obama, Kamala, right, Oprah, exceptions to the societal rule, right?
Yes.
Which it shouldn't be. And so understanding that we know it can happen, there are things we can do, but also understanding that there are still a lot of systemic barriers in place. So I think that it's that old adage of you just got to get up in the morning and keep putting one foot in front of the other and
exactly.
do. And everyone is doing their part in this work. So I'm doing my part in terms of coming into corporate America, and I'm trying to do my part. Mm-hmm. There are people who are out there and they are protesting and they're doing their part. There are people who are writing legislation, right? Maybe that is where, I'd like to see from the administration, that's where they can do their part, right? Is like, let's look at legislation that comes before you and make sure that legislation isn't biased. Let's look at what is going on in Congress, and let's look at seeing how we can open some things up, right? That's what they can do. But everyone has their part to play. Mm-hmm. And we all have to do it in concert for anything to actually change, right? Because if we all just sit back and wait for one person to make the change, we're going to be here a long time.
Exactly, that part. Well, in your work, and I don't want to make sure that we give an allowance for you to share where people can follow you on Instagram, on Facebook. Just give us your handle and where they can purchase the book.
Yes. So on Instagram, I'm Diversity Diva. So it's easy to remember. That's my Instagram handle. Everywhere else, I'm Stacey Gordon. You will find LinkedIn at Stacey Gordon. Facebook, Facebook would be my company, Rework Work. So I didn't actually say that. My company name is Rework Work, and that came out of just the idea that we need to rework everything about work, right?
I love it.
Hiring, onboarding, training, development, advancement, promotions, raises, right? All of it. So that is the company, and you can find me at reworkwork.com as well. So the website is reworkwork.com. But yeah, if you go to Diversity Diva Instagram, follow me there, and we've got a link tree with all the other links. So that's probably the easiest one to do.
Okay, awesome. That's always important because, sometimes the conversation is so juicy. I just forget to say, hey, where can people follow you and where can they get the book?
Yes, you can get the book on Amazon, Bookshop, Porchlight, your favorite bookstore, independent bookstore, woman-owned bookstore, Black-owned bookstore. It's available. Well, it's in pre-order. It'll be shipped in the next couple of weeks, but you can definitely purchase it today.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Now, I kind of wanted you to go into some detail in the women that have been working from home and the men that have been working from home. And what are some of the, I guess, maybe the obstacles that maybe they face as couples,
Yeah. And I'm going to stereotype a little bit here, but if I use my own example, I think that what we have found overall, right? Of course, there are men who are doing their part and they're doing a great job, and we applaud you. Thank you very much. But overall, in the larger, numbers, we are seeing that women still are bearing the brunt, right, of the maternal work in the household chores, taking care of the kids, making the lunches and the dinners. So what we're seeing is that women are the ones having to still work, right? But they're the ones getting interrupted more during their work hours. They're the ones that are having to bear that brunt. And so there's a statistic out there too that says that women, have been set back in the workforce. We have lost so many jobs. We've actually lost like 10 to 20 years of progress.
Wow.
In the workplace, which is unfortunate. And it's frustrating because not only have women lost jobs, just as men have lost jobs, but women have lost their jobs. And then on top of that, those who have jobs have had to reduce hours because of the childcare issues throughout the pandemic. So this has not been a great time to be a woman.
Unfortunately, those statistics are, they're staggering, but there's hope. There's hope. And so we really want to bring hope to the situation, allowing women to say, well, what is there for me? What can I do? So you have another book that you wrote about 99 questions, am I right?
Yes, it's called The Successful Interview, 99 Questions to Ask and Answer, and some you shouldn't. I wrote that, I can't even believe it's like 8 years ago now.
Wow.
But the information in it is, it's relevant because it's really just about the questions to ask and answer on an interview. And I tell people, like, it's not one of those, not a page turner, right? You're not going to read it from cover to cover. But what it has in there are questions to help you prepare for an interview. And so as you're thinking about what are those questions that you want to ask? Now is the time. This is the time to be choosing a workplace that is going to work for you.
Yes.
And so looking at what are the diversity initiatives that a company is working on? How did a company treat their workers during the pandemic? What did that look like, right? Because we've got to stop just falling into jobs and really finding jobs that are going to suit us. So that requires some research.
Yes. That's, that's a good one, because I think a lot of times we do it out of need. We're just taking the job like, oh yeah, this checks all my boxes, salary is there, the benefits are good, but the hours might be, detrimental to your health, long term. So there are some things that we might have to sacrifice or we might have to compromise on to get the right fit. But really, we should be writing our own ticket.
Well, it's about being deliberate, right? And really knowing what we want. Many times we're like, we just need a job. Now, I always say, if you need a job, you need a job, right? Go get a job because you need to put food on the table. That isn't necessarily the time to be picky.
Right.
But the time to be picky is once you are steady. It's then looking at, where do I want to work? What do I want to do? Kind of like what you said in the beginning, Rachel, about, what am I passionate about? And then identifying companies that meet that, right? And looking at, I would like to work at company A, company B, company C, because they do the kind of work that I like. Their mission and vision and values align with mine, right? There was an article or a post the other day on LinkedIn about whether or not a CEO should be able to speak his mind if what he is saying might potentially be, a liability to the company. And my thought was, well, he's a CEO, right? Your mission, your vision, and your personal values should align to that of the company because you are the CEO. If your values do not align that of the company, you should not be the CEO of that company, which means that when you speak, you shouldn't have any problem, right? Because you should not be misaligned to the thing that you were doing. So it's like, it just, I just get frustrated.
I know. And that's interesting because I've worked in marketing and I've worked for like a brand manager. And, we really try to help our clients with staying on brand. If you're representing a client, you want to make sure that you walk in the office representing your company to the best of your ability. So that's everything. And from the way you dress to the way you speak, it all speaks volumes. So we definitely need to do our research. I think that's a key point. And definitely get your book, because that's going to help, a lot of people. I definitely would recommend.
What I talk about in that book is about talking about your values, right? Knowing what your values are, because without identifying that and knowing your values, what you care about. Like, for example, me, I can't go work for a company that manufactures cigarettes, right? I'm not going to do it. I can't do it. I can't in good conscience do that, right? Like, so you have to be comfortable in the kind of job that you are in. And again, I go back to, I get it. Sometimes you just need a job. So would I take a job that manufactures cigarettes if I really needed a job and I was broke and I had no money, and if I didn't take this job, I wouldn't be able to to pay my rent? Yes. But would I intend to stay there? Absolutely not. Right. I would know that this is short term. This is in order for me to be able to feed my family. But while I'm there, I'm going to be looking to get out, right? Because I would know I don't align. This is not for me. This is not where I can stay, right? And so I think that is the difference in understanding. It's kind of like for when you're a teenager and you get a job in a fast food place or in a retail place. For some people, they do end up staying, right? Becoming the manager and maybe eventually the owner. And that's great. But that's because but most times when you talk to people who do that, when they got there, they didn't intend to, right? But they got there and loved it. They got there and enjoyed it and said, I really like this. I actually want to. But 9 times out of 10, most people go, I just want to get a job here just so I can pay my bills, so I can save up some money and, get to the next step in my career or in my life.
Exactly.
So it's just knowing why you're there and what you're planning to do.
Exactly. Wow. Well, you know what? I don't know how things are going to shake out because of the pandemic, but I think more or less companies have tried to just align with personal values and really dictate as far as the culture of the company, as far as the safety of their employees. This thing took us all by surprise and jobs shut down so quickly. You really didn't have a choice or a chance to like reevaluate, or you're just out there, you're stuck. So I'm hoping that women and men all over America can definitely find jobs that speak to their heart, because maybe they don't want to go back into that same scenario or industry. Maybe they want to pivot and do something else. I'm wondering what type of educational courses are available for them right now. It's online learning, distant learning. I did distant learning. It was fine, for me, but I'm just wondering if that's something that would be an option.
Well, and I would say this is where you get that quick fix, right? You can learn so many different things. Like out there now, you've got Coursera and Udemy, and of course LinkedIn Learning. And so, like I have, 2 LinkedIn Learning courses that will help. One that walks you through how to do your resume, right? Okay. It's like a long course on resumes. So if you actually go to LinkedIn, what is it? LinkedIn.com/learning. You will get access to their learning library. And they have tons of, especially now that LinkedIn is owned by Microsoft, all the Microsoft Office type courses. If you needed to brush up on Excel, if you need to, figure out project, like Microsoft Project or any of those types of things, it's all in there, right? So I think it really goes back to starting with being deliberate and knowing what you want to do. So like I also have a course on making a career change. And in that course, I say the same thing. You can't make a career change when you need to put food on the table. You just need to go get a job, right? You can't be picky. But once you have the opportunity to be picky, then you should be thinking about what it is that you want, what a job could look like for you, what type of place you want to work at, and have that written out. Know what it is, know what it looks like. Because then when you are looking at job postings, you can be evaluating it against your criteria instead of just going, oh, that looks good. That was interesting, right? It's like going grocery shopping when you're hungry, right? You want everything.
Exactly. I had to make a note to myself. I need to get a snack before I walk in here because I got this list that I need to stick to. Oh, wow. I was wondering about the remote working, since this is a digital age and things are so quick, digital technology is so quick and it changes so frequently. I was wondering how companies will then now transfer employees back to coming in when it seemed very successful for the remote workplace where most of the employees are working remotely. They're still
Right.
getting the job done. So
Well,
I'm
it's like
wondering.
what I said in the beginning. Yeah, right. I mean, it's like what I said in the beginning. Companies want their employees back in the workplace.
Yes.
I was in a meeting with a lot of high level business, really some of them are business owners, but
Mhm.
many of them work for large corporations downtown LA, right? And they
Uh-huh.
all said, we want to go back to the office. We cannot wait to go back to the office, but we will not go back until the government allows us to do so, right?
Yes.
Because they're probably not going back before September.
Wow.
So,
Now,
but that might change.
I was wondering though, since the vaccine is really being pushed and made readily available for anyone that wants to get it, that date may be pushed up because
I
I
think
was
so.
hearing April.
Yeah, it's going to be pushed up. But
Mhm.
what I'm saying is there's the date. So there's a bunch of different dates, right? There's
Mhm.
the date that, for California, our governor decides that we are reopening everything. Like,
Yes.
honestly, I keep looking at Disneyland, right? I know they said they were thinking about reopening in the next couple of weeks. So I'm like, okay, is Disneyland going to open? And once they open, are they going to be at full capacity, right?
Wow.
Or are they going to be at 25% capacity or 50% capacity? Where are they going to be at? And you have to think about for companies, especially again, these huge high rises, right? You realize that when they have, we're mandated to only have 4 people in an elevator. How long is it going to take to get people up and down
Ooh,
in a huge high rise building? Again,
that's a good point.
why people are not going back yet, right? Until they can get to full capacity. Because even at 50% capacity, okay, well then maybe, right? It's just, there's a lot of things at play that from a company standpoint, and again, it goes back to risk. It goes back to risk and efficiencies. And it is much cheaper for them to keep you at home right now, at least for those who have been at home, than it
Mhm.
is to have you go back to the office and deal with all of these uncertainties and all of this risk.
Yeah, I'm just wondering, like, how are they going to keep the employees safe? It's like, okay, so the elevators one, because I've worked in several downtown high-rise buildings, um, and usually we would see a cleaning person. So I'm wondering if the cleaning person is going to be making more rounds frequently during the day. And then a lot of the offices, I've worked in law firms, so they have like shared kitchens and, big break rooms. So it's like they might have to limit how many people can be in the break room. So
This is
there's,
why I'm saying they're not going to do it until the government says they can open at full capacity, because it's
yeah.
not worth it to them to have to answer that question, right?
Mm, mm. These are just my mind. I'm just, thinking out loud, but I'm sure other people, please comment. Drop your questions in the comment. Like, follow, and share this podcast, Inspired by Love. I want to thank my special guest, Stacey Gordon, and she is promoting her book, Unbiased. And
Yes.
put the book back up. Yes. Unbiased is coming out at the end of March, but you can pre-order your book. You can go online to Stacy's website and Amazon. And where else did you say?
Barnes and Nobles, Bookshop, Goodreads, any bookstore.
So, Stacy, leave us with 3 takeaways for the woman.
3 takeaways for the woman. I mean, well, I'm just going to, I think one of the ones I'm using right now is boundaries.
Oh, that's good.
On boundaries. Because, mama knows everything, right? And for those of us that have kids,
Mhm.
mine, I was telling Rachel earlier, part of the issue with women in being, living at work, right? Living at work is that my kids will walk right past my husband and come ask me questions. I'm like, did you not see it? Okay. So they will come ask me. So I've just had to put up some boundaries, especially for my older two, because I'm just now like, normally they would ask me questions and I would answer it, or I would look it up, or I would help them. And I was like, you know what? I am not Google.
Mhm.
You'll figure it out. And they're looking at me kind of crazy. And I'm like, Mama is off the clock.
Mhm. I love it. Yeah. Boundaries. Love it. That's number one.
So, yeah. So boundaries. And I think the other is really making that decision about, do you want to work for yourself, or do you want to work in a company, right?
Mhm.
And for some people, that's where they want to work in a company, right? They love it, they enjoy it, and there's nothing wrong with that. And for some people, they hate it, they don't want to do it. In fact, the woman who did my my photography for my book launch, she said, she's never had a job. She's young. I love her. She's got such spunk.
Wow.
And she was like, I knew that I didn't want to go work for somebody. And so she was like, I hustled. She's like, I have always hustled. She was like, sometimes I had 2, 3 side gigs, but she's like, I did what I had to do so that I would not have to set foot at somebody else's job. And that's just the way she wanted to be, right? So you have to really ask yourself, what do you want?
Mhm.
And then set a plan to go for it. So, and I don't know what my number 3 would be. My number 3 would be self-care. Dang it. Like, we need to get you a spa day, get you a hotel room, get you a glass of wine or a smoothie or whatever it is that you drink, right? And it's not just about, like, sometimes it is about leaving the space. And again, my household, we got a lot of people in my house. Sometimes I just need to leave that space so that I don't have to be the one answering questions. Yes. If I decide I want to eat something, I don't have to ask 4 other people first what they think about it and what they would like. I can just go eat the thing. Right? So just self-care, whatever that looks like, whether it's giving your mind a break, giving your body a break, we need to do more of it. And it's not selfish to do it. It is absolutely 100% fine to do that.
I highly recommend it for anyone that's listening to this podcast. Self-care is highly recommended. And you got to figure out what works for you. Like for me, a day at the beach. Just take the time off. I'm, at the beach. I'm near a cafe. I can still have my smoothie, look at the sunset or whatever. And then being pampered, having my hair done, having my nails done, having my mani-pedi, and maybe a massage. It's just the little things. It doesn't take a lot. You don't have to spend a lot of money, but you only got one you, and you have to take care of her. So, Miss Stacey Gordon, I thank you for coming on the show. I thank you for sharing your love and your educational knowledge with us today, especially for women and diversity in the workplace. That's a key thing. And I believe that women all over will be, highly informed once they get your book. Yeah.
Thank you.
So to our listeners, remember, be inspired by love. Bye now.
Thank you for tuning in to Inspired by Love. Join us every Wednesday for the juice to be inspired. Like, follow, and share this podcast. Be sure to leave a positive rating